The topic we have for the time being is for the discussion today is Uniform Civil Code. Of course, it is it's a debated topic. It's a hotly debated topic, and a lot of confusion excess with regard to your Uniform Civil Code. Even the constitution makers themselves, the stalwarts like Ambedkar, were not very clear about we did not have a very clear you know stand in the Constituent Assembly. It's not that Ambedkar did not have a stand, but the Constituent Assembly did not have a unanimous opinion about it. That's what I'm saying. And ever since we got independence as a nation, whenever the question as to Uniform Civil Code has arisen, it has it has gone for hot debates also. So it's in this context that I thought, or we thought, I would say, Safi sir and myself thought, we will have a discussion on Uniform Civil Code. So I'll start with a simple question like this: do you like coffee? It is not to be answered, but it is a question to be considered. So I'm sure that all the audience, each one of you, will have an answer for this, either yes or no. This is for the reason that we are well aware of what coffee is. We are aware of, we are familiar with coffee. We have either either taken it. You know what are its characteristics, how good it is, how does it taste, and things like that. I think a similar question should be asked about a Uniform Civil Code also. When we ask the question, when we raise the question, do we require a Uniform Civil Code? We have an answer, either yes mainly, or no. And another. There are two groups, I would say: people who are for Uniform Civil Code and people who are against Civil Code. So you have answers, readily available answers. Yes, we require a Uniform Civil Code, and other group would say no, we don't require a Uniform Civil Code. But many times, what I did is, whenever I got an occasion, I asked these people, some of these people themselves, what is Uniform Civil Code? The analogy of coffee could be brought in here. When I asked the question, what is Uniform Civil Code, the people who had a ready answer, a readily available answer that yes, or readily available answer as no, they were not very clear. They were not clear at all. They were not having a proper idea about what a Uniform Civil Code is. So my thinking here is, my purpose here is to have a clarity about what Uniform Civil Code is. The people who take stand, politically or otherwise, or religiously or otherwise, many times, I'm not saying that none of them had any idea about Uniform Civil Code, but many of these people do not have a basic understanding about what Uniform Civil Code is. Without having such an understanding proper, how can they take a stand as to whether they require a Uniform Civil Code or whether they do not require Uniform Civil Code? So I think the first and foremost question we should be asking ourselves is, what is Uniform Civil Code? What is Uniform Civil Code? Unless we have a clarity about what Uniform Civil Code is, it may not be proper for us to have an answer, either yes or no. Or in other words, our answer to the question whether Uniform Civil Code is required or not should be well informed, or should be based on the understanding what Uniform Civil Code is. Here I will bring in the analogy of coffee. We know what coffee is. Likewise, unless we do not know what Uniform Civil Code is, our answer to the question cannot be very true, or cannot be a well-informed one. So, the question of Uniform Civil Code, a better picture to represent the problem of Uniform Civil Code could be this picture. You have different religions, you have different religions, and having different practices relating to certain aspects, and those are divergent, and those divergent practices have been established, I would say, have been followed in India for quite long time. And Uniform Civil Code would be an attempt to uniformize these practices, and it's an endeavor to have uniform practices for all citizens with regard to certain things. Now, my thinking goes like this. So the first and foremost, as I said, the debate in India about Uniform Civil Code is either ill-informed, many times misinformed, or it is not informed at all. We do not know. The people do not know what a Uniform Civil Code is. So, going forward with this, I have a problem when I thought further. I have a problem about the very terminology itself. Is the question something relating to Uniform Civil Code? What's our understanding of a civil thing, civil code? What does it mean? No, I went to some of the discussions of Constituent Assembly debates, some of the discussions which are available in the Govan Civil Code. So any transaction between two civil people, like two private people, two individual people, any kind of transaction can be termed as civil. That's our understanding also. So, my thinking is this: Uniform Civil Code itself, even though it is used by no people having wisdom to make a constitution, but my thinking is the use of terminology Uniform Civil Code itself is a little problematic. A better terminology which will better convey the idea to be conveyed would be Uniform Personal Law Code, because even matters relating to contract, even matters relating to property, transfer of property, and very many other related things could be within the framework of civil code. And as far as our country is concerned, as we know, those matters which are of civil nature are already commonly used or uniformly used to all of us. If at all there is divergence, as we know, divergence is in the area of personal law. Personal law cannot be equated fully with civil code or civil matters. The civil matter is a terminology of wider amplitude, and personal law is one among them, or it includes, it comes within it. Civil and personal laws are not it cannot be equated, and personal laws are much wider, and much of these laws are already uniformized in India, or it is uniform in India. So, to have a better understanding, to have a clarity about our discussion, we may have to say that Uniform Personal Code, the question as to the implementation of Uniform Personal Code, that is the question in India. That should be the question, and to my understanding. Of course, there could be differences of opinion, but I'm putting forth a no stand about this. Now, going further with this, no, to have clarity about this in the Constituent Assembly debate itself, Ladi Krishna Swami Iyer, one of the prominent figures in Constituent Assembly, says civil code runs into every department of civil relations. I'll go once again. Civil code runs into every department of civil relations, to the law of contracts, to the law of property, to the law of succession, to the law of marriage, and similar matters. And as we know, the matters relating to law of contracts, we have a law of property, you have Transfer of Property Act and other laws. So these things are uniformly applied to almost every citizen. Of course, there are certain exceptions even in Transfer Property Act when it comes to the gift and things like that. But otherwise, speaking generally, there is uniformity with regard to this. But of course, when it comes to succession, when it comes to marriage, etc., there is no uniformity. So the major debate is not as to civil law as such. So the question is not as to uniform civil code. I would say the question is as to uniform personal law code. Now, going further with this, and same idea, we can one can discern if we go to no, Goan Civil Code, because I refer to Goan Civil Code because, as all of us know, Goa is the only state in India where there is uniform civil code. Goa was under Portuguese regime, and the Portuguese civil code was applied to Goa, and it is still allowed to be in India, till date. And it's interesting to go to Goan Civil Code. Of course, there are certain problems with regard to that, and of course, it is not completely uniform. Certain exceptions are also there, but the Goan Civil Code, or which is an adoption of Portuguese Civil Code of 1867, could be a good reading for us, because we are all familiar with common law statute system or common law system, and we are familiar with English statute pattern, but we have a different pattern there that is quite interesting on the sidelines. Apart from that, going into the content of that, they have a definition, they have an understanding about what a civil matter is, and it is, of course, it is not relating to confined to marriage, succession, etc. It is much wider, as we understood now. So it's quite interesting to go for that. Now, what it says is Article 44. Article 44 should be the starting point for a discussion on Uniform Civil Code. Article 44 says there should be a uniform civil code for citizens. Of course, we should go by the terminology used by the constitution makers, though I have certain reservations for the reasons I've already explained to use the word uniform civil code. And it says, the Article 44 of the Constitution says, state shall endeavor. What it says is state shall make an attempt. It doesn't give a mandate to the state. It says the state shall, the public authorities, the state, this nation shall India shall endeavor, make an attempt to secure for the citizens, for all of its citizens, a uniform civil code throughout the territory of India. That's what it says. What a few things are to be noted here. One, even the formulation of that, it says that state shall endeavor, try to have a uniform civil code for all citizens in India. That's what it says. And notably, it is not in the Fundamental Rights chapter, part 3 of the Constitution, but in the part 4 of the Constitution. And part 4, as you know, as stipulated under Article 37, part 4 of the Constitution are not justiciable, meaning to say it cannot be enforced. It gives certain directions. These are fundamental principles in the governance of the country, but one cannot go to the court and get it enforced for non-enforcement. And as it is a matter of hot debate, even in the Constituent Assembly, especially many of the, so to say, Muslim Constituent Assembly members having apprehensions about this. But people, including Ambedkar, Ambedkar appear to have a stand, pro to, for uniform civil code. But considering the fact that there are apprehensions with regard to that, even Ambedkar and even people who have supported that decided to have that in the directive principles of state policy, so that when the time is ripe, it can be such a thing can be brought in force. That is their thinking, but the time has not been stipulated, and the contents also have not been stipulated. And most importantly, as far as our present discussion is concerned, there is no definition, there is no clear understanding about clear understanding spelled out in the Constitution itself about what a uniform civil code is. It is in this context that we are having a discussion about what a uniform civil code is and how it should be and things like that, so that we can have an informed opinion about whether that should be there or not. And no, for your information, in today's discussion, we may not go to the question as to whether we require uniform civil code or not. Today's discussion would be confined to what would be the content, what would the uniform civil code would cover, what would it mean, and we'll confine discussion to that today, and then we'll go to the question of whether uniform civil code is a requirement or not, perhaps in the next possible discussion. Now, for let's go to the further understanding of a better understanding of uniform civil code. If you go to different sources of uniforms and sources which would speak about uniform civil code, they say that this is just an illustrative one. It is not that these are the only things that could be covered under uniform civil code, but the major things that would be covered under uniform civil code would be the norms relating to marriage, the norms relating to divorce, the norms relating to maintenance of husband or wife or children or age-old parents, the norms relating to inheritance, norms relating to adoption, norms relating to succession, and the like, and the like. But major things would be like this. So if you go to personal laws, it could be Hindu law, it could be Muslim law, it could be Christian law or Parsi law, anything. What we get to see is there is divergence, there are divergences with regard to the matters, the way things are carried out when a person is born, a person is died, a person gets married, and when a person's property is disposed of in the sense under succession. So if you see that birth, death, marriage, and also succession, and of course adoption and related things are different. And it's important for us to understand, to keep in mind that these things are different, practices are different, and no custom are different, and it is allowed to be different under call this different personal laws based on different religious no practices. The differences of personal law are based on differences in religious beliefs. That's an important thing which we have to know, which we have to keep in mind. So, so to say, the Hindus have one way of thinking and practicing when a person is born, when person gets married, when person disposes of his property, when a person adopts, when a person decides whether to go for an adoption or not, or if at all a person decides for adoption, what's the procedure for that, and the case of death, and also, of course, in the case of disposal of or succession relating to property, and the way the people deal with these things if they belong to other religion like Mohammedan religion, or it could be Christian religion or Parsi religion, are different. So here the question as to uniform civil code is a question as to religion also. That is something which we should be keeping in mind. So the question before us could be restated. How much can state? So if at all we are trying for a uniform civil code or uniform personal law code, the question, the actual question, the root question, the skeleton of the question, the fundamental question could be like this. To me, it could be stated like this: how much can state interfere in the matter of religion in the constitution scheme of things? We have a constitution, and things do now happen as per the constitution, goes without saying. It is the framework of our legal system. And so if there is an attempt for making a law of uniform personal laws, especially when there are divergent personal laws as of now, it is as we have discussed and as we have understood the context in which we are discussing this. The question is how much can state interfere in the matter of religion? Because when you are saying that you need to have a uniform personal law, you are interfering with religious practices. You are in a way you are interfering with the religious practices of different religions. So you say that instead of that practice, it's better to have this practice to have a uniformity about this. So the question should be understood, should be considered like this: how much can state? interfere in the matter of religion in the constitutional scheme of things. Now, for this, obviously, we should read 25. We may not go for a reading of 25 because we know that. And Article 25 says that freedom of conscience and freedom of profess, practice, and propagate religion. And now, what it says is subject to public order, morality, health, and other parts of this, other provisions of this part. So it's contained in Part 3 of the Constitution. Importantly, the right to religion as a fundamental right is not an absolute right like any other right. It is subject to public order, morality, and health. And very importantly, it's also subject to other provisions of this part. Meaning to say, right to religion is subservient to right to equality, right to life and personal liberty, right to freedom of speech and expression, and other things. So it's made amply clear here. It is subject to public order, morality, health, and other provisions of this part. So your right to religion is subject to other fundamental rights. So if the right to religion as a fundamental right comes in contrast with comes face to face with any other fundamental right, it shall yield to other fundamental right. And what it says is all persons are equally entitled to have freedom of conscience and also right to freely profess, practice, and propagate religion. But even here, the content of right to religion or right to a conscience has not been made clear in the Constitution itself. But if you go to a string of cases, a catena of cases, relating to right to religion, what can be made out is this: when it comes to the content of right to religion, is what is protected under in the name of right to religion is essentially religious practices. Meaning to say, essentially religious practices of every religion is considered to be the content of right to religion, and that needs protection. That is given as sacrosanct status as a fundamental right. In other words, only those practices which are essentially religious practices would be protected as essentially religious practices, and with regard to other matters, there could be interference, and that is made clear even in the Constitution itself, saying that no, I've just bolded certain sentences there. To which I invite your attention to. Regulating, when a state has the right to regulate or restricting any economic, financial, political, or other secular activity which may be associated with religious practice. Even an activity which is connected to religious practice, but it is economic, financial, political, or other secular activity that can be regulated by the state. A state can interfere in such a matter. The state cannot interfere in a matter if and only if it is an essentially religious practice. Of course, it's not very easy in a complicated country. I would say complicated social fabric India has, and so India is a complicated country. So it's not very easy for us to understand what are the essentially religious practice of a religion. But at the same time, we are better placed to understand that it's only essentially religious practices which are to be given a fundamental status, fundamental right status. Other activities like economic, financial, political, or other secular activity that may be associated with religious practice can be interfered with. Going further with this, we have got certain explanation which are not much important, of course, which may be looked at, but we will not go to that as we have positive time as well. So the idea here is Article 25. What is protected under Article 25, and what is to be taken care of, and what cannot be interfered with by the state, even in the attempt to have a uniform civil code, is essentially religious practice in view of Article 25. And Article 26 is also important here. Article 25 says freedom to manage religious affairs with regard to establish and maintain institutions for religious and charitable purpose. That builds on the right to religion to manage its own affairs and matters of religion, to own and acquire mobile and immobile property, and also to administer such property in accordance with law. All these rights are being given, and certain tax exemptions have been given, and certain restrictions as to restrictions for religious instruction in state-run institutions are also been laid down under Article 28 of the Constitution. So these things also will have to be kept in mind. And going further to understand what is the constitutional scheme as to uniform civil code indirectly, or as to right to religion. So we have Article 25, which speak 25 and 30, which would tell us about the protection of minority rights and cultural and education rights. And it says any section of citizens residing in the territory of India or any part thereof having a distinctive language, script, or culture, these things cannot be interfered with in the name of a uniform civil code. That's what I would believe. That's what I would like to communicate you. And any including minority or majority or whatever be the group, it's a group, right? So having a distinctive language, script, or culture of its own shall have the right to conserve them. Such a thing cannot be interfered with. Such a thing cannot be interfered with. Similarly, if we go to Article 30, no minority and minority status is understood based on two criteria. Those criteria are language and importantly religion also. So minority can be based on religion. So it has got overtones when it comes to a question of religion, when it comes to a question of uniform civil code also, as we have understood now. So what it says is no, to establish and administer religion. Sorry, administer education institutions of their choice. That's what it says. And the question arose as to what does it mean? Is it right to establish and administer educational institutions relating to religious practice? An interpretation to that effect was quite possible, possible, but the Supreme Court of India, which is the guardian of fundamental rights, had a very different take on that. Rather, the interpretation given by the Supreme Court for Article 30 or right to minority is really welcoming and really wide. What it says is the right to establish and administer education institutions for minority is not confined to education institutions for religious instructions, but also for secular activities. That really widened the scope of that right and really made that right what it is. And it gave as sense of confidence even to the minority religious groups, I would say. So it was in as we have a case from Gujarat, and Saint Saviour's case, which kept the gates very wide open. So that was that is really something which we should be keeping in mind while going for a uniform civil code related discussion. So Article 25 to 28 will have to be kept in mind. Article 29 will have to be kept in mind, and also Article 30, which ensures certain rights to minority religious groups are also to be kept, which are cannot be interfered with by the state. At the same time, we will have to have an understanding about the about right to equality, which says that there shall be equal people can be considered, should be considered treated equally. Here there are two possibilities of interpretation. Either we can say that personal laws are discriminatory, all the people require similar personal law, and we should have a uniform civil code. That could be one of the arguments. On the other hand, we could say that Hindus are different from Muslims, and Muslims are different from Christians, and Christians are different from Hindus and Muslims and Parsis. Meaning to say, the principle of equality says equal people are to be treated equal. And if these religious groups are considered a different group of people, there need not be any equal treatment. And so there need not be any uniform civil code civil code. So both these arguments are possible. There could be argument for uniform civil code, and there could be argument no, saying that uniform civil code is not compulsory in view of article 14 and equality principle. Both arguments are possible. And there are certain other things which we should be keeping in mind, like people who are for uniform civil code have these arguments, like if there is a uniform civil code, it will integrate India. Uniform Civil Code, or UCC, will help introducing vote bank politics. Will have and Many times different personal laws would give different treatment to different people, and so it gives loopholes to loopholes in the legal system that can be avoided. That's another argument. And Uniform Civil Code (UCC) is a sign of a modern, progressive nation. Another opinion on that. All citizens should be treated the same. That's a equality-based argument. It promotes real secularism because ours is a secular country, and so real secularism can be achieved only when we have a uniform civil code. These are the arguments put forth by people who support this, and change has been the law of nature. A change should happen, just because people have been clinging onto a certain particular practice for quite a long time. They should be allowed to have that same practice. Will not hold water. That's what people say, and people say that there should be change in that. And many provisions of specific personal laws are in violation of human rights. And that's also one of the arguments. And some of the arguments have a content for that, will hold water, but some of them can be opposed also. And Article 25 and 26 guarantee the freedom of religion, and UC is not opposed to secularism. Maybe if we think the way we thought just now, without touching essential religious practice, if you're going for a uniform civil code, that may not come in conflict with the secularism and right to religion. And having a uniform civil code will make the legal system coherent. That is another argument for uniform civil code. And there are certain arguments against uniform civil code, and that is based on personal laws are derived from religious beliefs, and as there is a right to religion that should be respected, and uniform civil code will go against the right to religion. That is one of the arguments, major argument. And it's also said that it is prudent to not to disturb them, disturb personal laws, as it would be as good as disturbing the right to religion itself. This runs the risk of endangering the great deal of animosity and tension between various religious communities. India, being a religious country, guarantees its minorities the right to follow their own religion, culture, and custom under Article 25 and 30, which we have already had a note of. And the people who go against it also argue that implementing UCC will contravene these articles. So we have arguments on both sides, but the question should be we should consider the question without disturbing the essential religious practice, without disturbing the things that can be protected under Article 26, 27, and 28, and without disturbing the core principles enshrined under Article 29 and 30. Can there be a uniform civil code? Or rather, the content of uniform civil code, as per the constitution stipulations, which we can elicit, which we can assimilate from this discussion, could be something which will not disturb 25 or the core of 25, core of 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30. And is it possible to have a uniform civil code, or isn't it possible for India to have a uniform civil code without disturbing this? Is it possible? So the uniform civil code, and another thing is the apprehension, of course, well founded also to great extent. A uniform civil code could be bulldozing on the minority the rights and practices of majority. So that apprehension is also to be taken care of. If the constitutionally guaranteed rights and freedom are kept untouched or protected, And without affecting that, without touching that, is there a possibility of a uniform civil code? And even such as a uniform civil code, no, if it is done by a group which will take care of this, which will be democratic, which will be considerate, is there a possibility of a uniform civil code? So the Uniform Civil Code, of course, it should. If at all we are going for a discussion on that, we are thinking about the content of that, possibility of that. That should have a content about about succession, about birth, death, adoption, marriage, divorce, and related things, and these things uh, these things which are kept away, the practices relating to this, which do not affect the rights under Article 25, 26, 27, 28, and also 29 and 30. If we are taking such a path, is there a possibility of that? And if such a thing is considered by a group which will have the confidence of all sections of the people, can such a thought not unfound? That's what I'm thinking. Or rather, this thinking is because of the reason that Constitution has a mandate. Constitution makers have a mandate saying that we should try for a no, we should try for a uniform civil code. That direction is already given. And if you show some maturity, and if you go by the constitutional prescriptions, which are of course indirect and which can be elicited like this, is there a possibility of uniform civil code? I think that should be the question we should be asking. We have not, we should be thinking more about this, but as of now, I think we have some clarity about what uniform civil code and what are its pros and cons. And unless we have a clarity about what uniform civil code is, it's not prudent to either to say no or yes. Our answer should be well informed. It should not be prejudiced. It should not be ill-informed. It should be misinformed. Yeah, and that's all from my side for the time being. No, we'll have further discussion on this in the next possible class. And if you have a question on this and some sort of clarification, we'll do that right now. Otherwise, we'll call it a day.
Thank